A further Russian invasion of Ukraine would be a political disaster, a humanitarian disaster. In my view, it would also be, for Russia, for the world, a military disaster.
This is not going to be a war of Ukraine and Russia. This is going to be a European war, a full-fledged war, because no one is going to give away territories and people any longer.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky today in Kyiv. Both gave stark warnings about what a Russian invasion of Ukraine would mean for the world. So what more can NATO allies do to deter Russian aggression? Susannah Goshko is UK High Commissioner to Canada. She is in Ottawa. High Commissioner, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to get your sense of the temperature right now. From the UK's perspective, is an invasion of Ukraine imminent?
Well, look, you heard the Prime Minister say just now that we're seeing the largest amassing of Russian troops on the Ukrainian border that we've seen in our lifetime. This is obviously a very real threat, and a full-scale military invasion would be the single greatest challenge to European security that we've seen in 70 years. But we continue to believe that diplomacy offers us a way out, and we're taking a dual-track approach, which is based both on deterrence and defence, but also on meaningful dialogue. So, for example, the recent offer by the NATO Secretary General to Russia to engage in further talks, we're hopeful that Russia will accept that offer, and only Putin can decide whether there'll be an incursion. But in doing so, he must know that invading Ukraine will attract severe and immediate costs.
You say that is Vladimir Putin's decision. If he does decide to invade or launch renewed attacks on Ukraine, what's your sense of when that might happen?
Well, I'm not going to speculate on timing. I don't think that's helpful to any of us, but I would just say that I repeat the message that doing so, as the Prime Minister said today, we're ready to go with economic measures and sanctions the moment the first tow cap passes the Ukrainian border.
Okay, on the economic measures and the sanctions, your Foreign Office has threatened to seize the wealth of Putin's inner political circles and his business backers should the Russian president invade Ukraine. So should we take that to mean that the United Kingdom is willing to target the wealth of Kremlin-linked oligarchs that is stashed away in places like London?
Well, first of all, I would say we're working very closely with international allies on a coordinated sanctions approach so that we can hit Russia where it hurts. Domestically, as you indicated, we're strengthening our sanctions regime. So our Foreign Secretary recently announced that we'll be laying new legislation before Parliament that will allow us not just to go after people who are directly involved in destabilizing Ukraine, but also to go after the people, the businesses, the entities who are strategically important to the Kremlin. And we believe that this will allow us to hit Russia where it hurts. We're taking nothing off the table.
You know, the UK has opted to send Ukraine anti-tank weaponry. I'm just wondering, why did the UK feel it was important to supply Ukraine with lethal military equipment as opposed to just defensive equipment?
Well, that lethal aid that we're providing is fundamentally defensive equipment. It's anti-armor missiles that would allow Ukraine to better defend itself. And it's part of a package of defense assistance that we're providing to Ukraine, which includes, for example, the training of 22,000 Ukrainian troops since 2015.
I wonder, Canada has done training and they've sent defensive equipment, mostly body armor, things like night vision scopes, but so far no weapons, no lethal arms, and there's been some criticism of that. Do you think Canada should follow suit and send weapons to Ukraine?
Well, I think it's up to every country to decide what approach they're going to take. So I wouldn't comment on what Canada's doing, but I note, for example, we've worked very closely with them on a potential sanctions package. So there's lots here that Canada is doing, including really active diplomacy in the region. Foreign Minister Joly going to Kyiv and European capitals in the last week, and of course Defence Minister Anand in Kyiv too.
So you're also looking, the United Kingdom is also considering a major military deployment to strengthen NATO's Eastern European flank. I spoke with the Prime Minister of Estonia about this. I mean, what more can you tell us about this? How big of a presence will this be?
I haven't got much detail to share on that at the moment because that's something that's still under consideration, but we will continue to consider how we're bolstering NATO's eastern flank, and that's an important part of our consideration and conversations.
When should we expect a decision on that, High Commissioner? Do you have a sense of the timeline?
I can't give you more detail on that for now.
Are you worried, though, of this being seen as provocation? There's like by Russia. I'm not saying necessarily it is, but there has been the assessment that Mr. Putin is looking for a pretext for invasion, and one of the issues that he takes exception with is the expansion of NATO's borders, right, into places like Eastern Europe. Are you worried that a doubling up of troops in Estonia has been reported as the sort of thing that he might use as a trigger point for him?
Well, I think that if he were to do that, that would be a false premise. NATO is at its core a defense organization. It's not in the business of being hostile towards other countries. So the only hostility here is really Russia amassing 100,000 troops on Ukraine's border.
We're all very closely watching what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, but also there is a lot of focus on what's happening domestically with Prime Minister Boris Johnson. I wonder if the domestic troubles he's going through with the controversies over the parties and the drinking at 10 Downing Street is impacting his efforts to deal with the Russia-Ukraine crisis.
Well, I don't accept that. The fact that he's been in Kyiv today is a real obvious demonstration of his commitment to this issue, and he's been actively engaging in diplomacy on this for a number of weeks. And in fact, just today, he announced he'll be having a conversation with Vladimir Putin tomorrow. So we're actively engaged and working closely with allies on this.
He's going to speak with Mr. Putin tomorrow, but he had to cancel a call with him yesterday because he had to make the statement in Parliament because of these controversies. So, is Boris Johnson really in a position right now to take a leadership role in the security crisis, or is the United Kingdom hampered in some way?
Well, I think the important thing is to look at our track record and what we've done over the last few weeks. And the announcement today, for example, of 150 million Canadian dollars worth of support to Ukraine to help them with good governance and energy security, the provision of training to Ukrainian troops, and a number of other things are clear that, including the coordinated sanctions package, are clear that we really are playing a key role in this.
Okay. High Commissioner, it was nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.